Good day, students. You are welcome to English class today. In our previous lesson, you were thoroughly drilled in the use of various tenses. And in today's lesson, you will consider how tenses appear in sequence. Introduction. Sequence of tenses is a set of grammatical rules of a particular language governing the agreements between the tenses of verbs in related clauses or sentences. So looking at this, when we talk of sequence of tenses, we refer to the order or the arrangement of tenses in sentences. So let there be agreement in the arrangement of the tenses in the sentences. That, for instance, the verb used in the main clause should agree with the verb used in the subordinate or what we call dependent clause. So that agreement is very important. If not, your sentences will be wrong. So you need to use the tenses appropriately to indicate the times of the different actions. Because if the verbs are not correctly used, then the time will not be expressed correctly and it will make your sentences to be incorrect. So the following tips will help you in knowing the sequence of tenses better. Remember, we are considering the tips that will help in knowing the sequence of tenses. So the first thing to do is to make the verb or verbs in the subordinate clause or clauses agree logically with the verb in the main clause. This is to reflect the appropriate sequence of actions taking place at different times. So when the tenses are used correctly, it will reflect the time correctly. For instance, he leaves this evening because he is resuming duty tomorrow. So we have leaves, which is simple present tense, is resuming, which is present continuous tense. But both of them are called present tense. So there is that agreement, and the order of the tenses is okay. So the students stood up as the principal entered the hall. Stood and entered are simple past tense. So this one too is correct. There is no how we will use simple present tense or simple past tense, and in our subordinate clause we use present tense. So this one too is correct. He noticed that the job had been completed. This is another sentence. So take note of noticed and had been completed. Notice is simple past tense. Had been completed is past perfect tense. So when you look at the two, both of them are past tense. So there is that agreement. So you should make sure the verb in the subordinate or what we call the dependent clause agree with the verb in the main clause. Another thing is to avoid unnecessary shifts in tenses. For instance, he came into my room and removes the books in the drawer. Is wrong because there is no agreement, or the sequence or the order of the tenses are not okay. So that's why the sentence is wrong. So the right way of expressing this is, he came into my room and removed the books in the drawer. This is correct because came is simple past tense and then removed is simple past tense. So the order is correct. He comes into my room and removes the books in the drawer. So this is another way of expressing this same sentence. So comes and removes are both simple present tense, of which is correct like this. So there is no how you will use past tense in the main clause and then use present tense in the subordinate or dependent clause, except if you are expressing eternal truth or what we call general truth. He thought the authorities have rewarded us adequately for our kind gesture is wrong. because there is no agreement in the order of the tenses. So the right way of expressing this is, he thought the authorities had rewarded us adequately for our kind gesture. So thought and had rewarded are past tense, of which the order is correct. He thinks the authorities have rewarded us adequately for our kind gesture. This one too is correct. So when you are using present tense, be consistent. And if you're using past tense, be consistent. Don't use past tense in the main clause and then use maybe present tense in the subordinate or dependent clause, because unnecessary shift in tenses is not acceptable. Another thing is that you express continuing states and eternal truth in the present. So in doing this, I have some examples here so that you will understand much better. Our teacher taught us that the world is round. The Man Died is a book that was written by Wale Soyinka about his prison experiences. So when you look at these two sentences, the underlined words, I want you to focus your attention on them. Remember, I say express continuing state and eternal truth in the present. So remember, in the first point I made, I say if you're using past tense, be consistent. If you're using present tense, be consistent. But that rule is not working here, simply because if you are expressing truth or eternal truth, that one has to be expressed in present. That's why we have our teacher taught us that the world is round. So remember, is a present tense because we are expressing eternal truth. That's why we have to use that. And then taught is past tense, is the past tense of teach. And this sentence is correct because we are expressing eternal truth. The Man Died is a book that was written by Wale Soyinka about his prison experiences. So you can see is there is talking about the eternal truth. That's the truth, the true writer of the book. Okay, and then was written by Wale Soyinka. Okay, so that one is working. Is and was there is there's that agreement because it's still expressing the truth about the whole thing. So there are things I want you to note. If the main verb of a sentence is in the past tense, then other verbs must also express a past viewpoint. Remember, I've said this, except when a general truth is being expressed. So I've explained this. So take note of this. If you are using past tense, be consistent in using it. If you're using present tense, make sure that the other part of the sentence too is expressed in present tense or present continuous tense and so on. So the only exception is that when you're expressing eternal truth, then you have to express that in present tense because it is true, it's something that cannot be changed. So for instance, we were surprised that the meeting was postponed. You can see were surprised, that is past tense, postponed, past tense. So there's that agreement. So this one is we are using past tense all through. Mr. Nampan said the sun rises from east to west. So said here is past tense, but rises here is present. Why do we use this? Simply because we are expressing a general truth about the sun. At present, he is reading a novel. It is the fourth one he is reading this term. So is reading, both of them are present tense and we call them present continuous tense. So be consistent in the order of your tenses as you have learned from this lesson. So the end. So make sure you use your textbook and open to page 173. You will see some exercises there. Please try and do them in your notebooks so that when we resume by God's grace, I will drill you more on the exercises. So have a nice day.